What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Jay Rich. I am here because I am finally ready to unveil the MLB projection model that I've been putting together behind the scenes for probably about a month now, it seems, since baseball started. So I'm going to kind of first start with really running you guys through what this model is, what the system is, how it works, and all these things. So when you actually see the plays and the picks I pick out, you're going to know exactly how I got to that conclusion, because in this video, I will be explaining the Mlb Projection System that I use and how I ultimately built out this model. Now, this video is built for PrizePicks. It is going to be a hitter fantasy score model, and so it's going to help us find edges in the hitter fantasy score department on PrizePicks. So what I will do is I will run through the whole process with you right now so you understand it, and then I will make future videos each and every day, or as many days as I can, talking MLB picks, MLB props on PrizePicks. Now, this is not exclusive to PrizePicks, because you're more than welcome to look at some of the edges and compare with the book markets to see if you can find other lines to exploit. But this particular model is catered for PrizePicks right now. I may try and build it out to where I'm projecting individual stats, but for now, this is the best way that I have to do it. We back tested a little bit, so we're finally bringing it to the public, and this will be the MLB projection model going forward for the season. There may be some minor tweaks. There's a few things I have to clean up within the system, but for now, this is what we have. So let's dive into it right now and take a look at it. So this is kind of how I ended up putting it together. It uses a bunch of different things. It pulls, obviously, the player names and who's playing each and every day. It pulls their projected order in the lineup. It pulls who they're playing, what park they're playing in. It pulls their season average, as you can see here, their last 14 average, and then most importantly, the opposing starting pitcher. And so it uses all these various factors to spit out a few different numbers. First, that I want to know, that's not really a number, but it's very important for fantasy score. It's their spot in the order, right? This pulls directly from a Rotograph site where they tell you their BVP, which is batter versus pitcher stats each and every day. And so I'm using that tool to help me automate their spot in the lineup. Now, you're going to want to confirm these before you ultimately place your bets, and a lot of times they will project it out, and then once the lineups are released, you can go double check it there, and it will update on this sheet as well throughout the day. Now, so again, this is where you're looking at, you want hitters that bat first, second, third, fourth, because they're going to be getting more at-bats per game, and that is obviously conducive to scoring fantasy points. So always make sure you double check the spot in the order for these players. But overall, the ones that I'm giving you will be middle of the order guys, top of the order guys. And if for some reason they're not playing, then you just don't play them. And it's a no bet. So it's not really a big deal. But if you want to do some of the research on your own, feel free to double check their spot in the lineup, because sometimes guys will go from batting second to batting sixth. It does happen. There will be mistakes. So when I give you a play early, things may change. So just double check that before you place your bets overall. Then the next thing, right, is it's mostly based on their last 14-day average. And so I can kind of show you how I built this out overall. But I have this, these are the top hitters in their last 14 days. You see Bryce Harper balling right now, 12 extra base hits over his last 14 days. And he's averaging 15 fantasy points per game over those last 15 days. And again, this is conducive to PrizePicks' scoring. So you're going to want to be taking advantage of these lines and these particular things on PrizePicks. And that's how I get these projections. So it tells me how many hits, doubles, singles, triples, all these things, right? And it all is conducive to putting together their ultimate fantasy score per game. And that's what shows up in these batter projections. So when you look at this, what happens is I made a weighted average using the last 14 days and the season average. So if guys are really on a hot streak, it kind of tempers their projection a little bit, so it's not insanely high, because I noticed I was getting some really crazy projections simply because they are just scorching hot and it was based too much on the last 14. So I decided to kind of reweigh it with the season average, but you still find some pretty crazy edges overall. Next, we're looking at the starting pitching. And so you can see right here, Arizona's up against the Dodgers. They're playing in Dodger Stadium, and they're going against Tony Gonsolin, who's been a really good pitcher so far this season. Now, I don't want you guys who do know baseball to get confused, because there are some pitchers who, while they are great pitchers in real life, they do tend to allow some fantasy points overall. So we can kind of exploit those matchups, because if someone's playing Max Scherzer, they're going to have really favorable lines on PrizePicks because it's Max Scherzer. But Max Scherzer, based on this projection model, has about an average fantasy points allowed relative to the rest of the majors. So we can take advantage of some of these things on PrizePicks. And so you see Tony Gonsolin has a factor of 0.6. And that's obviously really, really low. He's very good at limiting fantasy points compared to his contemporaries in the majors. And then you have a park factor of 1.05, and that will slightly boost the projection because there are more doubles, triples, home runs on a weighted average basis. Again, catered to PrizePicks scoring than average ballparks. And this is using ballpark factors from this year and as well an average over the past 3 years. So from 2019 to 2021 and kind of combining it into one park factor. And so basically using the last 14-day average and the season average, the park factor and the pitch factor, that's what ultimately spits out these projections. So you see here, these are the projections that I ran for today. And so it just automatically spits out all the projections for all the players, depending on who's in the lineup, who's projected to be in the lineup. And then as well, you can look at their order, all these things, and kind of how we ultimately come up with our total projection for the majority of the league. Now, for those who do play PrizePicks, we know that they don't offer that to everybody. So what I do is I go in and I actually filter out all the players that have projections. And so I go in PrizePicks and I manually put in all the lines each and every day. And that's what will give me now the edges and the players that are on the slate on PrizePicks. And I can easily take advantage of that in that direction. And so if we wanted to, we could just take this, I have the edges, and we could sort by the highest and lowest edge. And you can look and see Colton Wong scoring a ton of fantasy points because he has 5 steals in the past 14 days, and steals are worth 5 points. Rowdy Tellez, another player for the Milwaukee Brewers, on a supreme hot streak right now. Giancarlo Stanton running super hot. And then, of course, Nelson Cruz, who you'll see here, he's facing Sandy Alcantara, a very good pitcher for Miami, and they're playing in Miami, which is about a neutral park factor. But the problem is PrizePicks only has him projected for 4.5 points, and that's just not enough for Nelson Cruz. You can see he's clearly averaging 8.5 over his last 14 days and 6.24 over the season because he was in a bit of a slump. But if he can break that slump in this game, he could be a guy who goes over by quite a bit. As you can see, I have him projected for 8.5. And so the last thing I'll usually do in this condition is I'll go through and I'll actually filter it one more time, and I'll make sure that we filter out all the middle guys here and make sure that we have everything that we want. And so depending on the day, I'll filter these things differently, but this is ultimately what gives me this short list, right? Oh, I filtered that incorrectly. Look at me. Look at me. I1 is not in between, and so we will run that back again. What is this? Is not between. Oh, minus 50. Okay, cool. That's what I meant to do. So this is what I meant to put together. Is in between 70, plus 70, and minus 50. And as you can see, this spits out our short list for today. These 4 players, Colton Wong, Rowdy Tellez, Giancarlo Stanton, and Nelson Cruz, all to go over the projected fantasy scores. Now, as you can see, it's a bit of a Brewers stack right now. The Brewers, for whatever reason, on PrizePicks are a team that are projected low almost every day, and they've been hitting extremely well. They've been playing some bad teams. Ian Anderson is a fine pitcher, but you can see his pitch factor is still 1.14. So he's still below average when it comes to allowing fantasy points. He's not preventing players from scoring fantasy points. Colton Wong bats first, so he's going to get the most at-bats on the Brewers. He's been playing extremely well. Rowdy Tellez, same deal. He's been getting a lot of extra base hits lately. Giancarlo Stanton, like I mentioned, just had a 3-hit day in Chicago, playing in Baltimore now. Not the best park because they decided to move the stupid fences back, but overall, he's still playing extremely well and on a nasty tear right now. I don't even think this number is fully adjusted for how good he's really playing because his hot streak really started in the past 7 days or so, and so this still has room to potentially go up. And like I mentioned, you can see the edge with Nelson Cruz here. He's not the best hitter in the world, but he has an extremely high edge because PrizePicks gave him a very modest number. Now, I want to kind of give you another wholesale take here based off all this stuff is that with PrizePicks, a lot of times when you see my projections, you're not going to see a ton of stars when it comes to these types of edges, because if I wanted to go after Mike Trout, right, I can quickly take off all these filters, and you'll see the biggest issue with some of the really high-end guys is they have super high lines. So if I wanted to go down here, and like Mookie Betts, perfect example, this line right here against Madison Bumgarner. Madison Bumgarner's not allowing too many points. Mookie Betts is averaging almost 11 on the season, but his line is 7.5, and so again, it's a fine edge he can go over, but it's not as high as a bunch of the other ones we're seeing here. Mike Trout, another perfect example. If I wanted to go and search through and find Mike Trout, let's just sort by team to make my life a lot easier. And so we go down, we go to the Angels, we see Shohei Ohtani, Anthony Rendon, and Mike Trout. Mike Trout has a 10% edge because he's playing John Gray, who's doing okay at limiting batters overall. And then you have playing in Texas, modest park factor. I mean, I'm assuming with the heat, that ball will start to fly. And we know that Mike Trout can go over, but he's projected at PrizePicks at 8 fantasy points. And so that's when you're talking about it from a wholesale perspective, that's basically a hit, a run, and an RBI, and you're still not there because a hit, a run, and an RBI is only 7 points. So you need to get more than that even. 2 hits may not get it done. 2 hits and a run or 2 hits and an RBI, that's a push. So you probably need a walk in there. You just need a lot of things to work your direction versus a Giancarlo Stanton, like I mentioned, playing for the Yankees. This dude is averaging 13 points per game right here, projected for 12.6, and has a line of 6.5, and he's probably got an even better shot of going over than a Mike Trout. So these are the kind of edges that I find and I target on PrizePicks, and this is what I'm going to be showcasing to you guys as we go forward. But I just wanted to explain to you exactly how it worked and how it's going to show up. Basically, when it comes to my explanation, I'm probably just going to filter it all out and just give you what I'm looking for, right? So I'm looking for these massive edges. I'm looking for things that we want to target in these props overall. And so for me, that's where I'm going to give you these shorter lists where it's just the high-end guys that we're targeting. And it may just be 4 guys, maybe 3 guys, maybe 4, 5, 6. It could be anything. It just depends on the day, the slate, and the lines overall. But for today, I'll be targeting Colton Wong, Rowdy Tellez, Giancarlo Stanton, and Nelson Cruz. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. I'm really excited to start doing these MLB picks. I do have to build this out for pitchers. I know a lot of people talk strikeouts, they talk pitching outs, earned runs, all these things. I do want to build it out to do a pitcher fantasy score, and I probably will do some strikeout props and things like that added onto this. But this is the process that's been really successful for us so far. We've been testing it within our Discord and with some of our community. So I really want to start bringing this to you guys, to the masses, so you can really take advantage of it too. These are the 4 lines that I'm really liking today, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. They'll be shorter moving forward because I won't have to explain the whole process, but I wanted to run it through you just one time so that way you understand exactly how it works and exactly what I'm doing behind the scenes. If you tail, give them hail, and if we fail, do not bail. I'll be back tomorrow dropping some more MLB picks, and they'll be a lot shorter, a lot quicker, and just as informative. I'm out. Peace.